Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are attending this call from or attending this course from. My name is Julius Sentong, and I'm here to present to you a session which focuses on management of human resources for research projects. I do hope that you are engaging and you are enjoying the learning. So we want to dive into aspects of managing human resources for the research projects that you are either engaging in or that you are planning to engage in. So we have about two objectives that we would want to achieve by the end of this session. One, we want to look at some of the definitions for human resource management. And also, secondly, we want to look at some of those core steps for managing and also for planning for human resources for the projects. By way of definition, and this is a definition which is coming in from Edwin. There are quite a number of scholars that have come forward to define human resource management, but Edwin refers human resource management to that process of planning, organizing, directing, controlling of procurement, development, compensation, integration, maintenance, and separation of human resources. So we will be looking at some of these steps in terms of human resource management, but it's a whole package of different HR activities that have to be undertaken in terms of managing these resources. And so this could be at an individual, or this could be at organizational or society level in terms of achievement of the aims or the objectives for that definition. So they are quite a number of steps. We are going to look at about 7 steps or activities for managing human resources, right from planning for them, recruitment, until we reach the stage of managing the exit or demobilization of, a project staff. So the first one element is around planning for human resources, because it's very, very important that right away, as we write the proposal or as we implement the research project, we right away plan for the human resources in terms of which positions do we need to bring on board for the project, what kind of budget do we have for human resources, and also what kind of job description or job analysis do we have to conduct so that we bring on board the right persons to fill these vacant positions. And so human resource planning will engage into a process of forecasting, like what is the current need and what's the future need for the research project, so that we can plan that recruitment and then selection. So we are looking at 3 core steps: obtaining the personnel. We want to sustain those personnel once they get on board, but also we want to develop the human resource, and so that we can contribute to their capacities by the time the project comes to a close, or by the time they leave the project, whichever happens first. So which kind of staff do we need for a research project? So typically, this will depend on the size of the project, but also it will depend on the nature or the duration of your project. So we can have some well-established staff for those projects that are running for quite a larger period of time. But also for those that are running for a shorter period of time, we could have staff that are coming on for a few months that are going to be employed on a short-term basis. And so that, once the project ends or once the need for them to be on the project expires, then we can smoothly demobilize them and get off the project. So for those well-established staffers, we will need to think through, research project managers that we might want to recruit into the project. And this staff will continuously be available. This could be on a full-time basis, or they could be on a part-time basis, but they will be continuously available on the project. And then again, the needs will depend on the size of the project. So the examples could be project coordinators, principal investigators, co-principal investigators. Administrative staff are very, very important. But also for some projects, we might have some field or operational staff who are managing the activities of the project at a field or operational level. For those projects that are short term, like 6 months up to a year, so these are usually, we might need a staff that that are coming on to perform a piece of work. So here we might have research assistants, we might have research officers or supervisors coming on 4 months, 6 months, 12 months, and then we demobilize. But also we might have community guides. So I must mention that for these people that are coming on a short-term process, they can also be part of a long-term project. So I just wanted to mention that even for the long-term projects, we might want to have like research assistants, but they're coming on a relatively short-term contract. Let's move on to the second activity which we have to do in terms of managing human resources, and this is recruitment. How do we recruit and select project staff? And this could be done through advertising or through trusted sourcing. You might go to a source, or you might speak to some people to give you some recommendations. And then of course we have to conduct an interview. So we need to interview them, shortlist, interview them, and then we need to induct and deploy a successful candidates. So one, we have to identify what are the needs that we are looking for. Do we look for, is it a long-term or short-term project staff that we want to do? And also we want to look at the job analysis. What are they going to perform? What roles are they going to do? What kind of qualifications? All this has to be described in that job description or the job analysis document, so that we can identify the right person with the right knowledge, right skills, and also the right experience. And then of course we recruit them. We recruit them onto the project, onboard them, and then give them an induction. And recruitment in detail includes either internal and or external advertising, like I said, to generate that pool of applicants from which we can select, and we have our interviews. But most importantly, for some key positions, and you see this especially when you are applying for research grants, funders are usually interested to know and also to have their voice in terms of principal investigators, project directors, advisors. There are some key positions that will be described in the request for application. And then for those key positions, a funder might have a say on who you are bringing on board. So, but again, this will depend on a case by case. So it will depend on the project. If the project heavily has a lot of monitoring and evaluation. And then the funders might propose the M&E either advisor or director to be recruited and a key position. And also we have to ensure, of course, equal opportunities to avoid any unlawful discrimination. We don't want you to land into the court because either someone has sent in a complaint because they were unfairly treated when it comes to the job opportunity. And in terms of the selection process, we want to, of course, review all the applications that have come in, whether through an online portal or through email or through courier services or dropped physically. So we want to analyze all those applications, and then we want to conduct interviews. And interviews could be either structured, where we have well thought through questions, and we pose these questions to the candidates, or it could be semi-structured interviews where there's a bit of flexibility in terms of how we pick and select questions. But sometimes it could be a little bit more informal and in a more conversational style, which is the unstructured interview. And we just want to interact with the candidates, and then from there we can pick on our preferred candidate. But commonly, you find that most of the interviews will either be structured or semi-structured interviews. But also in addition, we want to do sometimes some additional tests, or they could be like aptitude tests, where we are looking at some ability tests, the ability to perform a certain skill or a certain function. Or it could be a personality test, and we want to look at someone who possesses those relevant skills or traits to perform the job. Or it could be a performance test. We want to look at maybe a secretary, and then maybe want to look at their typing speed. Or it could be a data analyst, and we want to look at which kind of softwares are they used to. So we might give them a small data set, and we ask them to analyze and give us some clear outputs, and that becomes a performance test. And also commonly, we need to do some reference checks before the person comes on board. So we need to write, because remember, they are going to send us their CVs, and they would send us referees. So we want to write at these points of reference, and then we ask them if they can accurately give us information on the candidate so that we can proceed with our selection. And once the candidates are in, we need to look at induction and orientation. So once they get into, we want to take them around our space, but also want to take them into the project. We want to inform them about the project, what it is about, goals, geographic focus, and any other key information which is required, which can enable them to have a good landing, and then they can start to perform. So sometimes we can, conduct seminars or briefings, which are led by the supervisors. So the supervisor has to make sure that the person that we are recruiting is well taken through the entire process of the organization, but also of the project. Then the other item in terms of the activities is sustaining human resources, because quite often we see some high to moderate turnover of staff, but also this is not good, because then it erodes the institutional memory of that project. So for established staff, we often pay time rates. It could be a monthly pay in terms of remuneration and benefits. But for short-term staff, it could be a piecemeal, where we say we are going to pay you 50% upon signing this contract or upon delivering a certain list of deliverables or items, and then the rest can be paid once we have all the deliverables in place. So we have some considerations, but most importantly, what I want to mention is that always refer to the institutional policy for research or for human resources, because a lot of your justification in terms of the base pay, level of effort will be stipulated within that policy. So always benchmark with the research policy for your institution, but also you might benchmark from similar projects or from similar institutions, and you say, this is what commonly in this country is regarded as a decent pay for a principal investigator or for a director or for a coordinator. So look out for all these insights as you determine your remuneration and benefits. And of course, projects should strive to avoid high turnover. I think I talked about this in detail at the start, but also this can be achieved through fair pay. It could be through motivation, like incentives, recognition of high-performing staff, but also listening to the staff to pick their issues throughout the system. Then we can talk about training and staff development. And so we have to conduct this ongoing capacity building and developing our human resource so that they can perform their tasks more efficiently, but also more effectively. So developing the human resource often requires a needs assessment to determine where is the gap or where is the need, and then by who, and then how do we address this need? Is it about training, where we send employees to gain more skills? Is it about orientation training, where we bring them up to speed about the job, what is required, and answer any questions that they might have at that point in time? Or is it about capacity building or development, where we want to go in and build or strengthen their skills and enable them to perform their tasks even better? Or is it about regular performance appraisals? And we'll talk about this more in detail, where we give feedback and then we appraise the staff, especially at the end of the year. Or is it about career progression? Someone needs to to keep climbing the ladder, and then so that they don't stagnate at one position. But whatever training and development efforts we use, the results must be transferred to the workplace. So we should see improvements within our workplace if we are developing our human resources within the projects where we are working. And then, of course, we have to advance. We have advanced research training. So there are some programs which offer trainings. It could be at a master's level. It could be at PhD or postdoc training. So some programs are built up with structures for such training. And then so we could send some of our staff to get into that advanced research training as the project plans. And then in terms of performance management, so here we are going to talk a little bit more about performance appraisal and any systems that we need to check the performance of the staff. So for those staff that are well established, like in a multi-year project, we have to conduct routine performance appraisals. These are typically conducted annually, whereby at the end of every fiscal or financial year, we conduct an appraisal process for the staff. And this is usually led by the supervisors but also by the HR team. The HR are usually part of these performance staff appraisals. And then this will inform our basis whether to renew a contract or to nominate or to terminate a contract, or to send our staff for capacity building. So we might find a gap as we conduct the appraisal, and then which requires us to send our staff for training or for skilling. And then, so the initial step is usually to send the form to the employee. They will fill out this form in terms of self-appraisal, and then they meet with the supervisor and frequently with the human resource manager, and then they have a joint evaluation of how the supervisor sees the employee and how the employee perceives themselves, but also the roles and tasks that have been assigned to them. So it's a full discussion whereby the two or parties, the party from the employer and the party from the employee, meet and discuss issues arising, and then take appropriate steps going forward. In terms of staff welfare as an activity, and this is usually very, very important, but sometimes it can be neglected, whereby the employer or the employers don't consider the welfare of the staff. But this is important, especially for those long-term or multi-year projects with established staff, whereby you have to have a policy on staff welfare, and it could be providing information on available support services, or it could be referrals, it could be issues around equality, respect for diversity, because we are different as individuals, so there should be those that policy which clearly describes how the welfare of the staff is going to be managed. It could be issues around zero tolerance to abuse, especially sexual abuse or gender-based violence, bullying, toxic workplaces. There should be a policy or clauses to show how these can be dealt with if they ever emerge. And of course, orientation or induction. How do we orient our staff? We talked about it a little bit earlier, but it could be in terms of amenities. What is available to the staff? Do you give them lunch? Do you give them some tea breaks? Do you give them newspapers to read so that they get to know what's happening outside of the workplace? And then it could be other services like leave, counseling. If someone has lost a relative, are there services to counsel and build the confidence of the staff? Is it about affirmative action? And name it in terms of welfare services. And then lastly, we have to think through managing staff exit in terms of if a project ends, how do you put up systems to efficiently demobilize your staff, especially as you're getting into the final year of performance. But also, staff might exit due to disciplinary actions. They might have either offended their colleagues, or they might have either broken one of the norms or codes of conduct that are within that institution. But sometimes staff might exit because of a resignation, either they have found a new opportunity like studying or a better job, and then they tender in their resignation letters and then they have to exit. But sometimes it could be retirement. A staff has reached retirement as stipulated in the laws. It could be either early retirement, it could be the mandatory retirement, or it could be on medical grounds, whichever the cause is. So, and the staff has to retire. And then we have to plan for the process. And also we have to plan for and process their benefits. So in terms of either it's a social security, we have to start filling their papers so that they can access their benefits. And then we have to think through termination or demobilization. We have to inform people in advance. If the project is ending in 6 months or 12 months, you start to prepare your staff. You have to, of course, it has to be gradual. Don't reach a point where the project has about 1 month and then you finally announce that there's no renewal and then the staff have to be demobilized. So think through these processes carefully so that you have a smooth exit of your staff. Okay, I think we've talked about all these items, but for short-term staff, so these either research assistants, as supervisors, normally their period of performance, like we've been saying, it's very short, and you have to clearly stipulate it in their contracts, and they know I'm here to perform this work within 1 week or within 2 weeks or 1 month, and then you smoothly have them exit the project. If there are any deliverables, they hand over those deliverables to their supervisors, and then you sign them off. If there's any payment which is due, make that payment, and then demobilize those staff. Okay, yeah, these are some references, some of the references from that you can go to and learn more. The session is not meant to make you human resource managers, but it's meant to introduce you to some of those core HR activities, so that as you manage the project, you are managing the technical aspect of the project, but also you are managing the human resources and logistics involved in planning and execution of your project. And once again, if you require any information, please do not hesitate to contact us through those addresses, and then we'll be more than willing to get in touch. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook so that we continue to build an interactive community on those platforms. So thanks very much, and I hope you do enjoy the rest of the sessions.